Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pastime Mysteries. Today's episode takes place in a hot Australian January. The Beaumont children were set off to the beach to enjoy the hot weather and sadly never returned home. In this episode, we will go over what happened to the Beaumont children. The Beaumont children were all born between the years of 1956 and 1961. The oldest is Jane, followed by Arna, and then the youngest is Grant. Collectively, they were known in the community as the Beaumont children. Their parents, Grant and Nancy Beaumont, had married in 1955 and settled in Somerton Park, South Australia, a suburb of Adelaide, Australia. They loved going to the beach and didn't live far from Glenelg Beach, which was widely popular in the area due to the era of surf music. At the time of the case, Jane was 9, Arna was 7, and Grant was only 4. It was a hot and sunny January that year in 1966. Jim had dropped the kids off at the beach before he set off on his 3-day business trip on January 25th. The Beaumont children asked their mother if they could go to Glenelg Beach early on January 26th, Australia Day. They took a 5-minute, 2-mile bus ride from their house to the beach since it was too hot to walk. They were supposed to catch the bus at 8:45 a.m. and arrive home on the noon bus. But when the siblings failed to show up on the noon or the 2 p.m. bus, Nancy started to worry. Jim arrived home early from his trip at approximately 3 p.m., and he drove straight to the crowded beach. After searching and couldn't find the kids, he went back, and the 2 parents looked around the neighborhood and at friends' homes. They then went to the Glenelg police station at around 5:30 p.m. to report the disappearance. Presuming the Beaumont children were nearby and had simply lost track of time, police arranged a rapid search of Glenelg Beach and surrounding areas. Fearing an accident or kidnapping, the search was then extended to include the sandhills, the ocean, and adjacent buildings. Additionally, the airport, rail lines, and interstate roads were being closely watched. The case became widely known across the country in less than 24 hours. The Adelaide Sunday Mail headlined their story, "Sex Crime Now Feared," on January 29th, 3 days later, highlighting the growing concern that a sex offender had kidnapped and killed the children. Despite this, the initial official reward was only £250 or $314 US. The Padawalonga boat haven was emptied on January 29th after a woman reported to the police that, at 7 p.m. on the day of the disappearance, she had spoken with 3 children who resembled the Beaumont children. The area was searched by 40 police cadets and emergency operations group members, but nothing was discovered. When police looked into the case, they discovered that multiple witnesses had seen the Beaumont kids in Collie Reserve, which is close to Glenelg Beach, with a tall, thin-faced man in his mid-30s who had fair to light brown hair. The man wore swim trunks, had a thin to athletic build, and a sun-tanned complexion. The kids seemed to be having fun and were at ease while they played with him. The man also approached one of the witnesses, asking if anyone had been near the children's belongings, as their money was, quote, missing. The man then went off to change, while the children waited for him. The Beaumont parents characterized their kids as reserved, especially the oldest Jane. It seemed strange for them to be playing so boldly with a stranger. Investigators theorized that the kids may have met the man on a previous visit and had developed a trusting relationship with him. This theory is supported by an accidental comment made at home, which at the time seemed unimportant. Arna had told her mother that Jane had, quote, got a boyfriend down at the beach. Nancy didn't pay any attention until after the disappearance because she assumed she meant a playmate. A clerk at the nearby Wenzel's Bakery, located on Mosley Street, stated that Jane used a £1 note to purchase pasties and a meat pie. Because the children's mother had given them enough money for their bus fare and lunch, and because the shopkeeper knew the Beaumont children well from prior visits, the police saw this as additional evidence that the children had been with someone else. An initial statement claimed that the Beaumont children had been spotted strolling by themselves along Jetty Road, away from the beach and toward their house at around 2:50 p.m. The postman, who was the witness, was well known to the kids, so his account was taken as credible. He reported that the kids were in the main street holding hands and laughing. The responsible kids arrived an hour late, and the police could not figure out why they were walking around by themselves, seemingly carefree. 2 days after making his first statement, the postman called the police back and said that, contrary to what he had previously claimed, he believed he had seen them in the morning instead of the afternoon. A few months later, a woman claimed that a man had entered a neighboring house that she had thought was empty the night of the disappearance, along with 2 girls and a boy. Subsequently, the woman claimed to have seen the boy wandering along a lane by himself when the man chased after him and roughly caught him. She didn't see the man or the kids again, and the following morning, the house seemed to be abandoned once more. Police were unable to determine her reason for withholding this information earlier. Other sightings, and even a psychic, were brought to Australia to look for the 3 children, but all resulted in nothing. No sign of what happened at all. Unfortunately, with all the international attention, the Beaumont family received random hoax letters in the mail. The envelope showed a postmark from Dandenong, Victoria, Australia. The short notes signed off as, quote, the man, who was keeping them, and described a rather pleasant existence. After comparing the letters with other writings by Jane, police at the time thought that the letters might very well be real. The man claimed in the letter that he had declared himself the children's, quote, guardian, and that he was prepared to return them to their parents. The letter then suggested a meeting location. The Beaumont parents drove to the specified location, escorted by a detective, but no one showed up. A third letter, supposedly from Jane, showed up later. It said the man realized there was a disguised detective present and that the Beaumonts had betrayed his trust, so he decided to keep the children. After that, there were no more letters. New forensic analyses of the letters revealed they were a hoax in 1992. The author, a 41-year-old man who had been a teenager at the time and had written the letters as a joke, was identified thanks to advancements in fingerprint technology. He was not accused of any crimes because of the amount of time that had passed. Now let's get into some of the theories and suspects regarding the case. In 1984, Bevan Spencer von Einem was given a life sentence for the murder of Richard Kelvin, the teenage son of Adelaide newsreader Rob Kelvin. Official statements from police and prosecutors indicated that they thought von Einem might have been involved in more killings. At this point, authorities started to suspect him of being involved in the Beaumont kids' disappearance, but subsequently, von Einem declined to cooperate with authorities. Police received information about von Einem from an informant known only as Mr. B during their investigation. He mentioned a conversation in which von Einem claimed to have taken 3 kids from a beach a few years prior and taken them home to carry out, quote, experiments. Von Einem said he had, quote, connected them up and done, quote, brilliant surgery on all of the kids, according to Mr. B's account. He killed the other 2 kids and disposed of their bodies in bushland south of Adelaide, claiming that one of the kids had passed away during the procedure. Von Einem had not before been taken into consideration by the police about the Beaumont case, but he has some key similarities to the descriptions and identification of the 1966 unidentified suspect. Detective Bob O'Brien of the Adelaide Police Department stated that Mr. B was considered a generally trustworthy source and had provided crucial information during the investigation into the Kelvin murder. Police opinions on the purported confession, however, were divided. While certain details provided by Mr. B were viewed with skepticism because they did not align with the known facts regarding the Beaumont case, there were enough credible details to support additional investigation. Mr. B also claimed that von Einem had implicated himself in the Adelaide Oval abductions from 1973, and like with the Beaumont case, von Einem matches descriptions of the main suspect in the Oval case. Mr. B's reference to alleged surgical experimentation corresponded to the coroner's reports on several of von Einem's alleged murder victims. However, the Beaumont kids are much younger than Richard Kelvin or the other young men von Einem targeted, but it's still important to note that this guy was dangerous. Investigations into both the Beaumont disappearance and the Adelaide Oval abductions remain officially open, and in 1989, von Einem was identified as a suspect in a confidential police report. It was reported in August 2007 that police were looking through Channel 7's archived footage from the original Beaumont search, which shows a young man who looks like von Einem among bystanders. According to the report, authorities were requesting details to identify the man. The Australian public showed the Beaumont parents a great deal of sympathy during the investigation. Staying put at their Somerton Park residence, Nancy, in particular, expressed optimism that the kids would come back, saying in interviews that it would be dreadful if the kids came home and found their parents not there to greet them. The Beaumonts worked together to thoroughly investigate every possibility as new leads and theories surfaced over time. These included rumors that the children had been abducted by a religious cult and were living in Melbourne, Tasmania, or New Zealand, as well as any information that might point to the children's potential burial place. They were devastated in 1990 when newspapers published computer-generated photographs of how the children would have looked as adults. The pictures, published against their wishes, caused a huge wave of public sympathy from a community that was still sensitive to their pain. Later on, the couple decided to live their last years apart from the media spotlight that surrounded them for many years, and they got divorced and separated. The couple sold their house in Somerton Park. It was said that the Beaumonts had come to terms with the possibility that their children's disappearances would never be found. Nancy passed away in a nursing home in Adelaide on September 16, 2019, at 92, and on April 9, 2023, Grant passed away in Adelaide at the age of 97. May they all be reunited one day and rest in peace. What do you guys think happened to the Beaumont children? I cannot imagine even losing one kid, let alone 3. I feel so bad for the family, and it's just such a crazy, fucked up world we live in. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.